Chapter 8, 17, Rue Boitel, Paris, France, November 22nd, 1967. Patch's uneasiness intensified as he walked early morning in front of the 17 Rue Boitel, where Jim Morrison would die less than 4 years from now. And he was followed by Andre's security people, a bald man and a woman with long blonde hair, whom he designated Frick and Frack. Plus, today was the 4th anniversary of President Kennedy's death in Dallas. All of these factors were enough to stir him up. He briefly glanced up at the 3rd floor and then ran several streets over and hailed a taxi. Père Lachaise Cemetery, he told the driver. Oui, monsieur. Any particular grave? Jim Morrison, chuckled Patch in a low voice as he looked out the window. I am sorry, sir. Nothing. Just gonna walk through the cemetery. I understand. He was not sure whether Frick or Frack was driving a smaller red car behind the cab. Patch reflexively twisted his lips. A short time later, the taxi driver pulled out in front of the vertical concrete and towering cemetery doors. He paid the driver and glanced up at the Latin inscription on the left. Then he was inside what was decidedly the largest necropolis in the world. He was not nervous about being in Paris. Walking along the mausoleum roadway, complete with linear stone tombs, left him uneasy. Even more, being in a place where Jim Morrison, now alive and performing with the Doors, would be buried, made him skittish. Though he did not see Frick and Frack, Patch was certain someone was trailing him. He looked over his shoulder and then down the road. The weirdness he sensed had to be the result of being in a city of dead people. He visited the graves of Balzac, a French writer, Sarah Bernhardt, Bizet, and Chopin, as well as Rossini. He stopped at the grave of Oscar Wilde. Patch was unsure where Morrison would be buried, but he was sure about the figure behind him who ducked in and out of the catacombs. He sprinted down the cobblestones under the leafless trees. I have a weapon, you bastard! Quite a distance away, an athletic man with a stocking cap ran in a blue sweater and chinos down the cemetery road. Patch sprinted forward, but the guy pivoted out of sight behind a maze of stone monuments and gravestones. Hey, what do you want? Patch slowed and sat at the edge of one of the granite stones. Why would his memories about Morrison be intact and key points of JFK's life and death were missing? Someone was sophisticated enough to target his memory loss. For a reason, he thought. And what of Morrison? Could he just let Morrison die back on Rue Boitel in 1971? And why did it bother him at all? He panned up the weathered stones and shook his head. He knew the fragility of time. One mess-up could yield a massive future calamity. He stretched his legs and he knew sitting at the cemetery would get him nowhere. Not many people would engage in conversation, he thought. What concerned him more was the agile man in the stocking cap, perhaps the same man below the tower, who made a determined effort to trail his movements. He turned in the cemetery and bellowed out a line toward the man who was following him, taken from a song that would not be written until 4 years from now. There's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad. Meinkewitz was in front of the TV when Patch arrived back at the flat. He watched an American channel that was about to replay a report from Dallas. Ah, you're out walking, Patch. Yeah, Patch stood next to Meinkewitz. Ray, I walked by the apartment where Morrison... Well, I hope that's the end of it, Patch. And took a taxi to the Père Lachaise Cemetery. Why? I just find it fascinating to see a place where something will happen that hasn't happened yet. Come on, Patch, that's crazy. We have other things we're dealing with. All right, said Patch, leaping up, and he swung his arms. I haven't changed anything on the timeline. I don't think you know that's true. Okay, what are you doing? I'm waiting for a live report from Dallas, pre-recorded. 4 years since Jack Kennedy was murdered, said Meinkewitz, maintaining a grumpy face. Soon it will fade into history if we don't get answers. Dealey Plaza could have been a neatly manicured city park with walkways and pergolas instead of a former killing zone. The depository was outlined in windows mere indents in the red brick structure. A dark-haired reporter in his 30s stepped forward in front of the grassy knoll as the camera zoomed in.
This is Darren Richard reporting from Dallas, Texas, Dealey Plaza, where 4 years ago the young President John F. Kennedy was gunned down in front of the 6th floor window by Lee Harvey Oswald on what became a sunny day just after noontime.
Listen to him. He regurgitates the mantra with no evidence, and he ignores the real evidence. They should have had Richter work on the Warren Commission. This was originally broadcast in the States 3 days ago. He did, from the outside.
President and Mrs. Kennedy had arrived in Dallas on a short flight from Fort Worth and landed at Love Field in Dallas, where less than 4 hours later the president was dead, and his body on Air Force One headed back to Washington, D.C. for eventual burial the following Monday at Arlington National Cemetery.
It's all one neat little package, said Meinkewitz.
Oswald, a Marine sharpshooter and communist defector to Russia, had just recently moved back to Dallas from New Orleans. He ordered an Italian rifle that killed President Kennedy.
Oh, I'd like to hear him prove that, said Patch. Oswald supposedly ordered under a different name from the P.O. box on a sequence money order out of the Treasury Department in Washington. The form went on a plane that could not have made it to Klein's Sporting Goods in Chicago to process it, as they said. The rifle didn't match the lot that was advertised, and the money orders were never processed through the Federal Bank in Kansas City, along with the other money orders. And with no proof of ammunition purchased. And sharpshooter in the Marines was one step below crappy. The scope was shimmied and loose, the height from the window to the floor was only 18 inches, and the expended shells were lined up perfectly. First rifle found was a Mauser. One more thing, Ray. Yeah, what's that? Shut him off. Gladly, said Meinkewitz, standing, and he turned the channel. Lost in space, I can identify with that. What else is going on? Dinah Shore, something from Nashville in a half an hour. Eddie Arnold, Ray Charles, the Everly Brothers, Johnny Mercer. Oh, let's go back to Richter. Meinkewitz smiled. I knew you would. A dark-haired man, very articulate in a dark suit and dark eyes, was explaining how Kennedy was shot. The magic bullet theory, said Patch. I'm amazed how good this guy is selling that nonsense. You want something to drink, Ray? He leaves out the evidence is what he does, and he distorts the other evidence. Very simple, said Meinkewitz. He pointed at the coffee mug on the end table.
Look, Darren, the shots which killed the president and wounded the governor were fired from the 6th floor at the southeast corner of the Texas School Book Depository. Are you sure of that? Governor Conley's testimony would challenge the magic bullet theory. When you're in the middle of gunfire, you may not always have a clear recollection. And if you're hit by a bullet, who knows what you think you saw and heard. Some Warren Commission members and LBJ wonder about the magic bullet theory. Even the FBI originally questioned that theory before the Warren Commission's conclusions.
Yeah, what about Mr. Tague, who was hit in the face by a bullet or a chip off the sidewalk?
All bullets have unique paths, Mr. Richter.
Patch rolled his eyes. For what it's worth, bullet hit the curbs, bullets hit the grass, bullets chipped the windshield, bullets chipped the seats, bullets hit the traffic signal, bullets hit the asphalt, bullets hit Connally, bullets hit Kennedy. Any questions? No, sir, said Meinkewitz. Program went to a commercial for Marlboro cigarettes. The Western music and the announcer made death by nicotine, tar, and other inert elements a wonderful thing. A minute later, Richter came back on the air.
Mrs. Reed, what did you exactly say when Oswald moved by you in the school book building? Well, I wasn't interested in what he was saying. It was just the excitement of the time, and I didn't even say, what did you say? Because I wasn't interested. Then he must have flown by you. No, sir, he was going at a very slow pace. I never did see him moving fast at any time. Mrs. Reed, did you ever have personal contact with Oswald about such things as his paycheck, anything like that? No, I did not. Do you remember what hand he was carrying his coke in? In his right hand. How many times do you think you saw Oswald during the period he was employed? My goodness, I would say 5 times. At times I would go down to Mr. Truly's office for some business. I would see him across the floor, but he paid no attention to you. And there were times, a few times, he ate lunch up there, but he never talked to anyone. He seemed to be interested in what he was doing. I would never see anyone talking to him at all in the lunchroom as far as I can recall, not at any time. Mrs. Reed, since the tragedy of November 22nd, have there been any discussions that you have heard among any of the employees which might relate to the character insofar as the personal habits or the what have you of Lee Harvey Oswald? The only thing I've heard anybody say was he never talked to anybody. He always went about his business. That was the only thing I heard employees say. Did you hear anyone say he might have been friendly with at least one employee? No, I have not. Did the employees discuss that all amongst themselves? No. Was it your usual practice to take lunch in the lunchroom on the 2nd floor? Yes, it is, every day. Do you recall whether Lee Harvey Oswald's usual practice, or how many times possibly you saw him there at lunch with you and the others? You mean, did he come up every day? No, he did not. Would you think he came up half the days, or could you give any half the working days? No, I wouldn't say he came up that often. I can't recall him being up there, maybe 3 times. But I've said since then, since he sat there and didn't say anything, he was reading. We have often wondered what we were discussing beforehand because we all have a general conversation every day about noon. But I don't know. We would have said anything that interested him. But you wondered if he was listening to what you were saying. I don't know whether you heard anything or he may have heard what you were saying. But you wondered, was he listening to what you were saying? I don't know whether he heard anything or he may have heard what we were saying. You, of course, know that Lee Harvey Oswald was an employee of the school book depository. I want to thank you so much for your cooperation coming up here, Mrs. Reed.
Oswald was on the 2nd floor as the car went by outside. Interesting. Well, that report was too hot. They'll never air it again, said Meinkewitz. The computer screen revealed a blue mesh dimensional representation of the time-like bubbles settled like stones in the bottom of a stream. True dimensions existed, according to what Patch remembered, along the quantum foam, which Meinkewitz equated to the bottom of a stream, but with the potential of unfathomable power and the ability to traverse time outside the 3rd dimension. Patch twisted in the chair. How do we bump those bubbles, Ray? Well, Moon knows, said Meinkewitz. I wish they'd get back to us about meeting him. I think they want us to meet with the Gaulle's people. Yeah, I'm sure Frenchie will let us know. But at least we've been protected by his men. Back to those retrograde bubbles. Targeted power. But Patch, you say in the future the bubble was moved at Hastings Mountain, with the whole city's worth of power in the loop. How I targeted that bubble at Apex Junction is beyond me. That's why we need Moon. You also produced the original bubble, Ray. Again, how? Patch poured some orange juice from the refrigerator. I really believe either Moon contributed or invented those things in the timeline. Or started me on the way to finding answers, said the frustrated Meinkewitz. It could have taken years. Patch stared at the computer screen. We'll talk to Moon if I have any chance of getting back home. Meinkewitz exhaled slowly. I'm just wondering about Nagal's footlocker, and as well as what will happen if they confront Lauren Hall. Hall is a force unto himself. He'll do what he always does. Take care of business. Chapter 9. 31 Avenue de Suffren, Paris, France, November 30th, 1967. Press conference of Senator Eugene McCarthy, Senate Caucus Room, Washington, D.C.
My decision to challenge the President's position and the administration's position has been strengthened by recent announcements out of the administration. The evident intention to escalate and to intensify the war in Vietnam, and on the other hand, the absence of any positive indications or suggestions for a compromise or for a negotiated political settlement. I am concerned that the administration seems to have set no limit to the price which it's willing to pay for a military victory.
Was this via Telstar? Called Patch. No, it's a replay of some sort. McCarthy is right, said Patch from behind the kitchen wall. But guess what? He has no charisma, Ray. Meynkewitz's voice was muffled from the other room. He may not need it. The war is an issue that will help him win. Patch heard the phone ring back in the living room. He continued to make his roast beef sandwich on the slate counter. Meinkewitz shouted twice, "Who the hell is this? Who the hell is this?" "What is it, Ray?" asked Patch, slapping on the provolone cheese on the roast beef. He opened the Coppertone refrigerator and grabbed a bottle of ale. "Ah, some prank call," said Meinkewitz behind the door. "I really thought Bobby would get in this race against Johnson," said Patch. "I really did." "Johnson still holds all the cards, even though the war is unpopular, Patch. McCarthy doesn't care about the polls, so much that he's dead set against Vietnam. Denali has Phinney working in the shadows around McCarthy. As early as last month, Denali thought intel might halt anyone who was against their precious war. That's one of the reasons why Jack Kennedy was murdered," said Patch, entering the room with 2 roast beef sandwiches. "Sure you don't want a sandwich?" "No, I'm worried about Moon." "He's crazy for sure," said Patch, biting into a sandwich. "I don't want to be his best friend, I just want his help. I'm running a computer program today on the formation of a dimensional bubble, and control of that bubble, from my own notes, theories, and equations. When and if we meet Moon, I'll have something cogent to say." The phone in the hallway rang again. Patch reached over and answered the phone. No one answered, but he heard a steady stream as if a faucet were left on and cascading into the sink. The line clicked and Patch held out the phone. His stomach tightened. The signal wavered and static spurted before the line cut out. "Hello? Hello? Probably a wrong number." Twice? It was long distance with static. Long distance. Wavy signal. Might have come in on a radio signal. Military or intel. Is that what you heard, Ray? "Yeah. They're probably trying to locate us." "Who's trying to locate us?" "The man I saw at the Eiffel Tower and the cemetery." "That's crazy, Patch." Patch moved to the window. Frick and Frack were equidistant from the center door of the building across the street. "Well, it's not them." "I prefer to know if someone is after me, not imagine." "We're not spies, Ray. You're a physicist and I'm a test pilot. We're up against liars and rogues. Don't forget killers." "I don't like it," said Patch. "Patch, we have Frick and Frack watching us. Just relax." "But is this flat really secure from the U.S. intel boys?" asked Patch. "People like Baker Finch." Meinkewitz raised his brows. "We're secure, unless somebody's been listening in." 31 Avenue de Safan, Paris, France, November 30th, 1967, 11:37 p.m. Patch, subdued by a couple of glasses of wine, sat with Meinkewitz in front of a film noir black and white movie with the actors Robert Mitchum, Jane Greer, and Kirk Douglas, involved with double-crossing characters in the cold-hearted city. "Sounds like some of the people we've been dealing with. What's the name of this one?" "Out of the Past." Patch laughed and finished the glass of wine on the coffee table. "Damn, that's something I can identify with. Ray, I need that scrambled tape from Phinney, the meeting at the CIA." "Oh, yeah," said Meinkewitz. He popped up from the sofa and worked the lock on his black briefcase. "The Garrison Group. A full court press on the Jolly Green Giant. By the way, the screenplay on the Mitchum movie was written by James N. Cain, who wrote Double Indemnity." Patch nodded, but he was more concerned with what the CIA was doing to Garrison.
September 20th, 1967, the Garrison Group meeting. 1. Executive Director said the Director has asked him to convene a group to consider the possible implications for the agency emanating from New Orleans before, during, and after the trial of Clay Shaw. 2. General Counsel discussed his dealings with justice and the desire of Shaw's lawyers to make contact with the agency. 3. Raymond Roker, Jim Angleton's chief lieutenant, felt that Garrison would obtain a conviction of Shaw for conspiring to assassinate President Kennedy. 4. Executive Director said the group should level 2 objectives. A. What kind of action, if any, is available to the agency, and B. What action should be taken inside the agency to reassure the Director we have the problem in focus. Possibility of agency action should be examined from the timing of what can be done before the trial and what may feasibly be done during and after the trial. It was agreed that OGC and ROCA would make a detailed study of all the facts and consult with Justice as an appropriate prior to the next meeting. The meeting was chaired by FWN Janey.
They're obviously scared out of their pants that Shaw will be convicted. That's why they're working with Shaw's lawyers, Patch. They're going all out. Angleton's guy thinks Shaw could be convicted. What does that tell you? Guilty. They'll be looking at all angles of this. How can it be stopped, Ray? Information. Get the information on these bastards. As Meinkewitz spoke, the power went out. What the hell? There goes the movie. Patch removed his 9mm and raced to the window. Frick and Frack were notoriously missing from the sidewalk across the street. Our friends are gone. Try the phone, Ray. Right, said Meinkewitz, shuffling in the dark to the hall phone. No phone. I don't see them anywhere. We've got to hightail it out of here now, before they close in. Let me get my briefcase. Patch grabbed the reel off the recorder and held his gun upward near the curtain. As Meinkewitz closed the briefcase, the front window exploded into 1,000 pieces. Frosty air gushed inside. He heard a rumble on the staircase. Damn! The fire escape! Patch opened the window and Meinkewitz backed onto the fire escape. Someone kicked the flats outside door. Patch pummeled the door with bullets. Then he backed onto the metal fire escape grid. The alley is dark, said Meinkewitz. No, up to the roof, said Patch. He followed Meinkewitz upward 5 or more floors and jumped onto the copper-plated panels. To the right were dozens of compressed apartments and townhouses across the city. Chimneys billowed smoke and water vapor into the night. What now? Asked Meinkewitz. Jump it. It's less than a couple of feet between buildings. What the hell, Patch? I'm not in shape for this. Jump or be shot, Ray. Let's go, said Patch, taking the briefcase. Meinkewitz opened his eyes wide and he ran for the ledge. Leaping through the air and he tumbled onto the adjacent building's flat roof. Patch easily leaped with the briefcase as Meinkewitz stumbled to his feet. Patch guided him across the roof to the far edge separation, which looked a foot wider. Both men scurried up the fire escape. They're going to split up, Ray. He guided Meinkewitz to the front of the building. The street was day bright, even approaching midnight. Patch lifted the briefcase above a skylight and a heating unit. Then he jumped inside. He peered up through the open glass edge at Meinkewitz. He was about to prompt Meinkewitz. Damn it, that hurt! Patch helped him up. They navigated through the sparsely decorated flat to the next door. Patch decided to go down the rear stairs and possibly away from the bright lights on Avenue de Suffren. His instincts proved correct as he opened a solid door to a blue-gray lit alley. Patch, somehow our secrecy was broken. How far is the university from here? As Meinkewitz spread open a small, colorful map on the bridge rail, Dr. Alexander Moon's voice resounded like a lost soul bellowing from hell.
Only 8 kilometers to the mountains, Patch.
3 leather-skinned men had M16 rifles. Patch immediately thought of Byfield Keel. They removed the weapons from Patch and Meinkewitz and shoved both men. They looked mean and out of control, with their mouths open like animals licking their chops for their prey.
Guten Tag, Taiwan. Against the wall, Ray,
said Moon. Oh my God. Moon carried a chrome small-caliber handgun.
I apologize to you both.
How did you find us?
Not important, Pip.
Ray, I need you at the College of Science in the village of
Galieserick, Switzerland.
He lowered his voice away from the 3 men.
I just don't trust these Germans.
Then why are you with them? Asked Patch.
The only security I have access to.
Byfield Keel. You have the Russians, said Patch.
I don't trust them either.
No, but you'll take their money, said Patch.
Shut up, Patch. I don't need you.
Oh, that's consoling. We're on a mission of sorts, said Meinkewitz.
Yes, I know the workings of CIA, and you're trying to find the truth in the Kennedy assassination.
How do you know this? Asked Patch. I know the whole deal, Patch, said Moon, his milky eyes opening wide as he avoided the question. I know there are people who know why Kennedy was killed. Sure you do, said Patch. Ye of little faith, I have been out at Langley. Oh, come on, you've always been a colossal liar, Alexander, Meinkewitz yelled with a fury that Patch hardly ever saw. If you're so friendly with Langley, why don't you tell us who ordered Kennedy's assassination? The big bad wolf. Say, he doesn't know, said Patch angrily. He's being used by the Russians. Actions speak louder than words, Patch. Moon moved closer to Patch. Providing Baker Finch doesn't find us, I'll get you both to Switzerland. That's impossible right now. Moon paused and stared several seconds. Fools! You're both wanted men. What do you want to accomplish, Moon? Asked Patch. Moon did not initially respond and looked into space, whispering emotionally as he spoke. I intend to kill those who used me as a guinea pig. Not that far from here in 1951. You know it well, Ray. I'm not the only one affected by that bread-laced LSD and the MK Ultra program, subject to mind control. I will seek revenge, even if it takes me the rest of my life. I will scatter them all to the wind. Our only interest is to find out why Kennedy was killed, said Meinkewitz. I don't care about your vengeance. Both of you march toward the street, to the dark Mercedes parked at the curb. We're taking a trip to Alizé, to the university, where we'll meet my contacts to bring you to Switzerland. Isolated on a rising hill trimmed with grass expanse, sat a light brick fortress of a building with a central clock tower and two turrets capped with slate on either wing. Several newer structures, linear and only a few stories high, formed a nestled campus toward a wide plain to the snow-laced hills far away. They stepped up from the shiny blue Mercedes. Meinkewitz leaned toward Patch and whispered, Moon just doesn't want revenge, he wants credit for his work. You can't go to Switzerland, Ray. I know that. And Moon is a fool for having those 3 East Germans involved. They're seasoned criminals. By field kill. And they're Russian puppets. You shut up, shouted the tubby one. These Germans opened the heavy door and they all entered a domed rotunda with mosaic tiles below. To the right was a long table, probably for information. An older lady with silver hair and blue eyes looked pensive as he marched ahead of the others. The East Germans took turns placing the gun barrel to Patch's head. Then they ascended the stairs for the next few seconds and were pushed up into a central corridor within the line-worn dusty tiles and exposed steel pipes above. Moon unlocked a door at the far end. Inside an upper platform area were sweeping light-colored sofas and chrome floor lamps. The walls were smooth white with glossy green tiles in the upper and lower sections. In the huge tank were brightly colored fish darting past each other. The apartment had filtered fresh air. Patch noted the similarity to the motif in Moon's Hong Kong office in the other timeline. He led them into a side office with several desks, a computer, and a large television set. A nod from Moon prompted the security men to wrestle Patch and Meinkewitz into the foam-fitting orange chairs. The doctor walked around the corridor corner. After 15 minutes had passed, Patch spoke up. What happened to Moon? You just sit and wait, said the largest security guard, pointing his gun. Who sent you after us? Said Meinkewitz. Where are the Russians? Shut up, growled the tubby man. Patch leaped to his feet and yelled into the empty air. Stop with this bullshit, Moon.
Patch, I love it when you get mad,
said Moon, his voice echoing out of a hidden speaker.
But I will get my revenge.
All right, Alexander, said Meinkewitz, also standing. I don't know how to move dimensional bubbles, and I suspect that you do. The East German with wide shoulders entered the room. Where is Moon? Asked Patch. Not your concern. My superiors... Russians, shouted Patch. The man fanned the floor with bullets and laughed as Patch and Meinkewitz scampered back. Who's in this Milky Way network? Meinkewitz stared at him for the longest time. Go to hell. I second that. Bring them to medieval tower. You will talk or die. The gray shale block tower had squared open windows and a stone slab floor. Patch was secured to the wallstone with steel clasps attached to metal chains. Meinkewitz was 50 feet away and also unable to escape. The security men were gone and the air was freezing cold. Moon is just crazy enough to kill us, Patch. He's not doing this. It's those crazy East Germans and the Russians. What the hell is he going to do up here? Use us for target practice? Asked Meinkewitz. It could be a crossbow if it's medieval. Should have taken him out while I had the chance. It's damn cold up here. And how does he know about the Milky Way network? Asked Patch. Intelligence chatter. Meinkewitz looked uncomfortable in the iron restraints. This is insane. Agreed. Now how the hell do we get out of here? I don't know. And Moon just disappears. Patch pulled in the chains. He'd better disappear if he wants to stay alive. By late afternoon into the nighttime darkness, the unstable genius known as Dr. Alexander Moon had not reappeared. The cold combined with hunger produced a numbing fatigue. One of the East Germans spoke after hours of silence. His voice emerged from the tiny portals that rimmed the tower.
You had enough, Captain Kincaid?
Patch said nothing and tightened his facial muscles.
What about you, Dr. Meinkewitz? Who's in charge of the Milky Way network?
Ever occur to you I don't have that answer? Asked Meinkewitz in a low voice.
One of you does, or both?
Meinkewitz shivered across the tower's stone floor. Let us out of here. We need your information.
You both had your chance. Welcome to the Middle Ages, gentlemen.
10 minutes passed. No indication the East German was still on the site. With just the sound of the wind, Patch closed his eyes in the semi-darkness. You people are sick cowards. Forget it, Patch. We need to kill him, Ray. From up here? Asked Meinkewitz, his figure slumped in the murky light. Plus, there are 3 of them. You may just leave us here, Patch, said Meinkewitz, his voice fading at the end of the sentence. Patch's legs and sides ached as time passed. Meinkewitz slumped, and the chains were taut to his wrist clamps. Patch detected an increasing rumble. What the hell is that? Asked Patch, but Meinkewitz said nothing. His head dipped to his shoulder. Ray, can you hear me? Patch debated whether to pretend to give answers to fool the East Germans. At least he would get them to answer. Flickering light, perhaps from a fire below, bounced around the upper dome. In just a few minutes, dozens of lighted torches flickered hundreds of feet below. Meinkewitz had dropped forward with his arms extended and his shoes pushed against the wall. Ray! Ray! Patch's arms and sides cramped. He swung right and hung by his right hand hundreds of feet above the torches. His head smashed against the blocks, sending him off the platform. The stress ripped at his shoulders, and he found it hard to get full breaths in the freezing temperature. Then the platform blocks on both his and Meynkewitz's platforms slid back. Patch wailed in pain, but Meinkewitz was unconscious. The pain and blood rush were unbearable as the torches blurred and Patch Kincaid's brain shut down. Chapter 10. Vietnam Combat Deaths, December 1967, 486. Patch, in a white hospital gown, had been on his feet for 2 hours. Most of the time he kibitzed with Meinkewitz. Both men had achy muscles, and Meinkewitz a possible torn ligament in his shoulder. Patch's first conscious thought occurred in an ambulance just outside of Paris. No one would answer any of his questions, even when he became stronger. There were numerous guards outside the door, and from the Public Ministry of Interior. He demanded to see Andre, but was continuously rebuffed. My biggest fear is agents of CIA showing up, said Patch. Yeah, like Finch. You know what Frenchy said before, he's no friend of the CIA, and vice versa. Doesn't mean he can't break in here, said Patch. My fear is what Moon will do with my briefcase, said Meinkewitz. All my general calculations were in there, as well as Nagel's letter in prison and his alluding to the footlocker in Arizona. Patch looked out at the people crossing the plaza's flat stones. Unless he's too focused on other things. And there's nothing about Denali in there, right? Correct. Patch, you know he'll hand that briefcase to the Russians in a heartbeat. Patch was about to speak, but he stopped when he saw the thin-faced Andre and a group of men in suits exit a deep apricot Citroen DS, pulled up to the hospital entrance. Andre, Ray, and his entourage. I don't know if that's good or bad. 10 minutes later, Andre, in a dark brown leather coat, walked by the guards into the room alone. Glad to see you up and around. And you, Dr. Meinkewitz, conscious. How did Moon find out where we were at that flat? Asked Patch. Andre said nothing for a few seconds. A plant in my office. I take full responsibility for what happened. Contacted Moon and persuaded him to travel to Paris. We suspect a high-level British agent. He was supposed to bring you to Munich where high-level Soviet officials would interrogate you and probably then kill you. If it's any consolation, we killed the 3 East Germans outside the tower. Well, good, said Patch. So Moon went rogue, asked Meinkewitz. Andre nodded. Until he was informed that the KGB operatives were on their way to Alizé. What did he tell you? He left us in the tower with the moving floor. He just wasn't there anymore. Congratulations. I have been told by my forensics people that the device in the tower has not been used since the time of Napoleon. Oh, that's wonderful, said Meinkewitz. We've made history. And it might be of interest to you that under the torches were steel spikes. Patch made a sour face. Is Moon headed to Munich? Unknown presently. He has my briefcase, said Meinkewitz, with the footlocker letter as well as my work. I understand. Hopefully we will track him and the briefcase down. I have to ask you, did Dr. Moon mention anything about the evaluation of factors contributing to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy? No, he did not. The other man mentioned a French report. Andre had the habit of dragging his index finger and thumb in a horseshoe pattern from the base of his nose down to his chin. He raised his brow and focused on Patch. A British agent named Sir Alec Girard. We know who he is, said Patch. What you don't know is that he may have lifted the report from de Gaulle's people in Algeria. He's trying to find out if that was the only report. This is the report about the Kennedy assassination, asked Meinkewitz. Yes, that's him. Well, what did they find out in that report? Asked Meinkewitz. Andre shook his head. Girard has been hiding. He's maybe contacted Moon. He has separated the cover page outline from the details of the extensive report. That report named names and talked about the origin of the plot against Kennedy. Then why is he hiding it? Money. Oh, of course, Patch chimed in. How much? Girard wants $20 million. Oh, that's absurd, snapped Meinkewitz. Is it? Asked Andre. $20 million to break the crime of the century? Patch exhaled. Well, I suppose not. Someone may share those pages or copies of the cover pages with you. Thought it was Moon. Wait, does Moon know about the cover pages? Maybe not. Happens to us now, Andre. Again, Andre did the gesture down to his chin. Right now, I don't know. I need to get you back to the United States. And Moon is on the loose, again, said Meinkewitz. He's not taking that briefcase information to CIA because he hates CIA. He lied about being at their headquarters in Langley, said Patch. Sounds as if the cover pages are more valuable. Of course. Excuse me. Andre next conferred with 3 men in the corridor. Then he was out of sight for a full 10 minutes. He had a brisk gait when he returned to the room. We are making plans to surreptitiously remove you from the hospital. To where? Asked Meinkewitz. I cannot give you that information right now, answered Andre. Operatives linked to de Gaulle will take you later. I or others will return within 4 hours. Be prepared for travel. Aye. Will the operatives get us closer to that report? Asked Meinkewitz. I don't know. Why isn't there another copy of that report? Asked Patch. Because CIA stole the other copy. Because CIA stole the other copy and killed a dozen men to do it. Patch thought about the persistent chestnut-haired Baker Finch. What about Moon? Asked Meinkewitz. We are monitoring flights to the Soviet Union. Stand by for now. Good night, gentlemen. I am most happy that you are alive. Ah, so are we, said Meinkewitz. As they waited for Andre, Patch heard the name Doris on the portable hospital's TV near the window. He positioned himself in front of the TV. The report was in English from New Haven, Connecticut. At a concert, Jim Morrison gave away money on stage. The report even said the cops were dancing as the band played. Total giveaway was $20,000. Wait, said Patch, turning to Meinkewitz. What the hell is this? This is where Morrison was arrested, Ray. Are you sure, Patch? Asked Meinkewitz. That's not the way it happened. This concert is where he's arrested for some sexual encounter and giving a cop lip before the show. Meinkewitz said nothing as he stared at the set. Then he looked up at Patch. You're the only variable, Patch. You must have mentioned this concert to someone. I haven't said a damn thing. This concert has changed from what it was. Why? I sure as hell don't know, Ray. Moon and his cohorts must have listened to my conversations with you, said Patch. Not in a short period of time, said Meinkewitz. My question going down the timeline is what else has changed? Does Morrison die in Paris in 1971? Or do other things happen in the world? Patch pinched the bridge of his nose. Just when we think we understand things, we understand nothing. Chapter 11, Algiers, Algeria, December 13th, 1967. 2 security men in light-colored Nehru jackets held their weapons upward as they encircled and escorted Dubrow, Patch, and Meinkewitz to the dingy orange truck adjacent to the maintenance hangars. Colonel Martineau, moistened Tiparillo between his teeth, and armed with an automatic weapon, stood in a crimson jacket that blended into the dirty truck's dented fender. The 2 security men climbed in the truck bed as Martineau waved Patch and Meinkewitz onto the dusty bench seat. Madame Dubrow leaned inside the window and whispered in Patch's ear. We are in great danger. I will not lie. Security has broken down with the CIA. Bastards. I don't understand. Patch whispered back. We have a dispatch from one of our people. About what? Bellini, Patch. That's the only information from Gerard we received. We attempted to wiretap his phone. Bellini. Babbling by a whore. Bellini. The situation is now grave. What? Who is he? Dubrow turned and crawled into the truck bed under her own power. Obviously, he's in trouble of some kind. I don't care about him. I want to find Bellini. The grubby Martineau looked over his shoulder and pulled onto the road. Almost immediately, he banked right and they rumbled down a shady stone-paved alley. The ferocity in Martineau's dark eyes reflected off the windshield as they passed between the buildings. His finger moved slowly along the weapon's trigger as he gripped the steering wheel with his other hand. He chewed on the spent Tiparillo stuck in the corner of his mouth. Patch slid open the rear truck window and the air whipped through the cab. Madame Dubrow, Bellini, is that a code Gerard was using? She balanced on the truck's rear window. I was assuming it is a person. That is all we've been able to get from the little trollop. That's all she heard, Bellini, when Gerard was on the phone after they made love. Who is Bellini? Again, she turned and looked back. We don't know. Martineau maneuvered between the alleys. Patch leaned to Meinkewitz. The outline of that report is in the valise. It's just the French's intelligence opinion. The report itself is the Rosetta Stone. Getting it to Garrison will allow them to verify it, said Meinkewitz in a low voice. Or Denali. Patch, what did she say to you? There must be a link. Gerard was overheard mentioning Bellini to someone on the phone. That's all they had. Odd, very odd. Meinkewitz shook his head. The quicker we get to New Orleans with the index, the better. Dubrow spoke and retracted her head. Keep your eyes open for Baker Finch of your Central Intelligence. Patch heard gunfire and then the distinct sound of bullets piercing the truck fenders. Several bullets punched through the windshield. Patch pushed Meinkewitz down and ducked as Colonel Martineau shouted, "You stupid bastards!" Behind him, Madame Dubrow had been thrown against the glass. Her smooth face and neck were riddled with bullet punctures, and her dark eyes had a cold death glaze against the glass. The two security men were missing. A large orange military truck accelerated some distance behind the old pickup. Holy shit, what now, Martineau? We still have to head to the base, the El Assam Road. The truck is gaining, said Patch, looking back as the gunfire continued. Screw them, cried Martineau. Screw them! Patch tried not to look at Dubrow's death stare. Her head and body bounced as the truck raced down the highway. Martineau turned onto a road that headed up a steep hill above the city. The larger truck disappeared, which made no sense. There we go! We've got him now! We've got them now! As they neared a long bridge between the hills, the massive green military truck burst out of the side street. 5 soldiers stood up in the back of the truck. As they unloaded their weapons, Martineau thrust his hand up to his throat as the truck veered toward the green military vehicle. The larger truck swerved and its tires were caught in a groove along the road toward the bridge. The bumper crushed the bridge's side column and went over the cliff into the canyon. Martineau slumped dead onto Patch. With not much blood spilled, he was killed from a single shot to the throat. The little truck simply rolled to the opposite side of the ridge. Patch pulled his gun away and shoved Martineau out the driver's side door. Dubrow was gone from the truck bed, but her blood remained splattered on the rear glass. The Ansam Road to the Bertois, Patch, shouted Meinkewitz. Patch focused on the valise. What the hell is that? Asked Patch as he spun the truck across the bridge. Smoke rose from the brush far below where the military vehicle had careened. We're heading west. The shore is to our right. We'll have to cross that highway. Moon must have been tailing us, said Patch as he pushed the truck up to 80. No way. He's long gone. Could be anyone firing at us. We're going to need a lot of luck to get to that landing strip. Let's hope Dubrow is 100% telling the truth. I keep thinking about the report and just how much of it is valid. It really could be the Rosetta Stone. Or horse manure. The base, Ariane Kashi. It's along the river. Oyed El Harik, said Meinkewitz, pointing to the foliage-lined waterway with agriculture beyond. I keep thinking we're being trailed, Ray. That truck took them all down. There's no way they were reporting to whoever has figured this out. I'm debating whether to send those pages to Mendoza for safekeeping. They may be surveilling him like they did before, said Patch, holding the M16 as Martineau had just before he was killed. They backed off, according to my last conversation with Denali 6 weeks ago, Patch. That document is far too important to chance it. You have to be 100% sure, and you're not. He watched another car as it approached and passed. Here we are in Algeria with rogues chasing us. Dubrow and the others just gunned down. Damn. Oh, we're in deep for sure. We're talking about finding the truth in Kennedy's death, Patch. We better hope they aren't waiting for us at the landing strip and it's just the Falcon and the crew. Then we shoot our way onto the Falcon. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, said Meinkewitz, looking back again. Patch spotted the landing strip beyond the river, wedged between the crops. The white and blue sleek jet was already at the far end of the asphalt. Patch checked his watch. It was just before 9 a.m. local time. He carefully veered left. 3 soldiers in light brown uniforms stood near the stairs, their weapons by their side. Let's hope they're the good guys, said Meinkewitz. Be ready with that rifle, Raymond. I'm ready. If one of us goes down, get the French pages to the investigation. We're not going down. Patch steered the truck slowly across the dirt road toward the landing strip. He retracted his finger from the trigger so he didn't miss fire. The adrenaline flowed freely as the soldiers' stolid faces became clear. The nimble man in the center carried his gun downward and marched up to Patch's window as the squeaky brakes brought the truck to a stop. Monsieur Westmoreland and Middleton, please exit the vehicle and board the plane for immediate departure. Do you need our passports? Asked Meinkewitz, gripping the valise handle. When we are inside. Patch stopped. Madame Dubrow, we are aware of the massacre. Please proceed into the aircraft. We aren't sure if they'll attack again. Understood, said Patch as he followed Meinkewitz and the valise up the stairs. They were directed by another man in casual civilian clothes to the seat rows. He asked Meinkewitz if he could stow the valise, but Meinkewitz preferred to position it under the seat. Almost at once, the stairs were raised and the hatch secured. The man in casual clothes returned when the plane turned and repositioned along the runway. He checked the passports for Tangier and handed them back.
We will land in approximately 8 hours.
8 hours? Asked Meinkewitz. Then he leaned to Patch. Denali and the others know we originally left for Paris, but they don't know about Tangier. I doubt they tracked us after that. Engines whooshed down the runway and they gained speed. Patch realized he needed to translate the pages. Remembering details was essential. Connecting Dulles, who lived in Georgetown, in any way to the Kennedy assassination would unravel the plot. The Hotel El Sobar, 4393 Coteau Terrace, Tangier, Morocco, 7:37 p.m. local time. Patch leaned on his folded arms propped on the smooth white stucco, overlooking a majestic curved shoreline. The sky was a steely blue. He and Meinkewitz and the valise were now safely ensconced in the Hotel El Sobar in Tangier. Tomorrow morning they would sail for Gibraltar. Patch, I've been trying to translate this report with a dictionary I bought in the lobby. Ray, you can't speak French, said Patch, still mesmerized by the electric-lit shoreline. My concern is the intel boys know we have that report index. Look what happened outside Algiers. We don't even know who those killers were, said Meinkewitz. What about Finch? Well, I'm still worried about him. Patch turned from the balcony. If he knew about us going up to the landing strip, then he knows what we're up to here in Tangier. Bellini. It's driving me insane. When we get back, we feed that to Denali, said Meinkewitz. Right. Other than Moon, who would be out to kill us and take that report? Gerard and the reference to Bellini. Could mean nothing. Let's hope for some smooth sailing tomorrow morning. Patch grabbed the English newspaper from Gibraltar off the coffee table and sat in the padded chair. He crossed his legs on the ottoman. Do you realize how many government overthrows Dulles has been involved in? Picking up another French word. I don't believe it. What don't you believe, Patch? Rosselli. He was indicted. No way. I thought he was so slippery he'd never get caught. 6 indicted in probe of Friars Club games. The picture of Rosselli right on the front. 25-count indictment. I guess they screwed over Tony Martin, Phil Silvers, Zeppo Marx. The judge issued arrest warrants and $5,000 bond. No, Rosselli will meet that. Here it is. Johnny Rosselli, 62, Beverly Hills, known as Filippo Sacco. Once allegedly the right-hand man of Al Capone. I didn't know that. And convicted in 1944 of extortion. Well, isn't that wonderful? Patch hit his forehead with the palm of his hand. Well, Rosselli messed up. Screwing high-profile Hollywood types. Stupid. Meinkewitz held up the photostated pages. I think I have something here, Patch, with the translation. Well, what do you have? Asked Patch as he sat on the edge of the sofa, still shaking his head. This is very important, and it relates to Kennedy's assassination. Allen Dulles lied to Kennedy about the 1962 de Gaulle coup. He said the former generals opposed Algeria being independent, which was a lie. Garrison can use that if it's tied into the JFK thing. Hold on. I need to properly translate this JFK quote. I am not in control parties de my government. I'm not in control of parts of my government. Patch stood up. Kennedy said that? according to Gaulle in this section. There you have it, Ray. He knew, said Patch. Garrison has to get this damned information. Easier said than done. What we need is the whole report. Patch was back at the balcony again. Sir Alec Gerard. Yeah, well, where the hell is he? I don't know. When this thing with Dubrow and the others wiped out, who would have known about our route? Meinkewitz looked up. Somebody who wanted the index pages. Exactly. Wait, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Movements of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on November 22nd, 1963. Let me see that. Are you sure that's what it says, Ray? Yes, I'm sure. What if they ordered Kennedy to be killed? Asked Patch. We're in deep shit, Patch. I know that, Ray, said Patch, raising his voice as he headed for the phone on the side table. He grabbed the white and gold European-style phone. I'm calling the Federico Belize and see if we're really on that ship's manifest. Well, why wouldn't we be? Replied Meinkewitz. Patch ran his fingers through his hair. We don't even know if the report is real. Well, that's what Garrison's people will figure out. Patch had the front desk reach the Federico Belize. The first officer returned the call a few minutes later with the manifest and clearly told Patch that the names of Sidney Westmoreland and Francis Middleton were not on the list for the 9 a.m. departure. He asked if anyone named Bellini was on the vessel, but no Bellini was aboard. That does it. We need to get the hell out of here. I think we're being set up so they can get the index pages. Well, that's speculation, Patch. What about CIA? Patch scanned the lower courtyard within the building itself. People casually walked by a metal-enclosed fireplace. Doesn't have to be Baker Finch who was involved in the chasing of that truck either. My guess is they didn't know you and I were on that truck. But they did know about the report, said Patch, taking his jacket off the sofa. Look, Patch, are you coming with me, Ray? We get a room in another hotel and figure out how to get out of Tangier. Meinkewitz stared at him. Ray, pacify me. Okay, we'll do it your way. Leave the valise here. What? We'll put the pages in a shipping envelope. Meinkewitz pressed his lips and followed Patch's instructions. He took the pages out of the valise. Patch kept watch on the balcony. Now what? If things get dicey, we mail the pages to New Orleans. That's taking a big chance, Patch. I said if we have to. To what hotel, Patch? Patch ran back to the table, and this time with his rifle drawn. He spread open the map and the hotel brochure. We take the ferry, not the ship, to Gibraltar. Then we go on to Lisbon, Portugal instead of Malaga. We fly to United States territory. We can't be too careful. Well, that's the understatement of the year, said Meinkewitz, pointing at Patch. The front desk will have a manila envelope, shouted Patch as he ran into the bedroom. He positioned the pillows under the covers of both beds. Who do we mail this to in New Orleans? I don't know. Great, I have an empty valise and a top-secret report with no place to go. Let's head down the outside stairs, Ray. Patch stuck his head out the door and checked the corridor. He stuffed the valise in the trash barrel as they rushed to the end of the corridor and started down the stairs. To ground level, they exited under the open arch into the street. Only 2 blocks ahead, he found the Palace, a small but quieter hotel. After checking in, they were brought to a first-floor room that faced the Al Sobar. Meinkewitz requested a manila envelope, tape, and a marker. The clerk agreed to make backup copies for both men, and they returned the marker and the envelope. Patch tipped him, and they headed to the room. In the room, Meinkewitz, holding the envelope, slowly looked up at Patch. If we get caught with this, besides getting killed, they'll have the outline of the report. So what? The CIA already has the report. Come on, Ray, our concern is to get to New Orleans. Got it. Both men folded additional copies and placed them in their wallets. We're leaving early. We'll have to carry an envelope to Gibraltar on the ferry. Addressed to where? What about Phinney? Asked Patch. He's monitoring the McCarthy campaign. It's impossible to get the report to him. And carrying the report back to the United States is risky. Okay, we have to mail the damn thing, said Meinkewitz. I know. Imagine Kennedy saying that about his government. How about we send it to Mount Wilson and not to Mendoza at the ranch? What about the return address? Asked Meinkewitz, joining Patch at a tiny window. Just leave it blank. We can't take the chance of being tracked. With the marker, Meinkewitz wrote the address on the manila envelope. Dr. Mendoza, Mount Wilson Observatory, La Cañada, California, USA. The sooner we send this, the better. Wait, do you have any idea of Denali's address or where he can get this? No, they keep all that information locked up tight. Okay. Return address from Professor Eagleton's ranch in San Diego County. Dovetail Ranch, San Diego, California. Meinkewitz scrawled the address in bold capital letters for the post office. Let's get some sleep. In the middle of the night, Patch rolled out of bed when he heard automatic weapons fire. Meinkewitz was already at the open window. A few moments later, 5 men with weapons burst out of the Al-Sabar staircase entrance. In a single file, they climbed inside 2 jeeps and sped away into the darkness. Believe me now, Ray? The good news is they think we were in those beds and we're dead. Patch checked his watch. 3:30. The ferry to Gibraltar leaves at 6. Meinkewitz was now breathing rapidly. We need to be down at that dock area while we still have the darkness. You all right, Ray? Yeah, just wonderful. Patch put his hand on Menkiewicz's shoulder. Ray, let me repeat. They think they've killed us. By the time they realize we weren't in that room, we'll be long gone. Chapter 12. Tangier, Morocco, December 17th, 1967, 5:15 a.m. Just before dawn, Patch moved slightly ahead of Meinkewitz, holding the manila envelope containing the pages. The early morning light before sunrise allowed them to navigate toward the docks less than a mile away. A row of foothills tapered into the Mediterranean across the eastern view. Warehouse roofs dripped moisture drops down to the stone surface. Patch wiped his forehead as he checked ahead and then back to the hotel. The men in jeeps were far away by now. Of more concern were the men who ordered the attack. Both men tiptoed along the shore. In less than an hour, the ferry steamer and the dock would start across the strait to Gibraltar. The whitecaps were dimly visible, and the gray horizon line had clearing skies above. Patch guided Meinkewitz to the benches along the walkways to the dock area. Small boats bobbed with the tide, and larger ships spewed forth steam jets. They were able to purchase 2 tickets to Gibraltar and paid cash in dirhams after showing their passports. Patch turned to his friend. He handed Meinkewitz his ticket. How you doing, Ray? I'm okay. We're gonna have to wait till we get to Gibraltar to mail this report. The salt air breeze passed by as waves broke beyond the seawall. Patch nodded. I understand. There's some open-air food places further down. Now I'll eat once we're on the ferry, said Meinkewitz, looking back toward the Hotel Sabar's brightening towers. Somebody wants this report, and they're willing to commit acts of war to get it. It has to be CIA, not necessarily Finch. Patch, if you're hungry, I'll go down there with you. Thanks, said Patch as he stood. In the first timeline, Ray, I wasn't this nervous when nuclear weapons started exploding around the country. Why? As they hugged the shore along the walkway wall. Even with the destruction and attack on Hastings Mountains, I was focused on getting Kate and myself into the chamber. The sun burst over the hill and the hotel towers. Patch was somewhat concerned about a man in purple clothing walking back and forth as he smoked a cigarette and looked down toward Patch and Meinkewitz. Do you miss Kate, Patch? The food aromas grew stronger as they passed the steamer. Sure, but in a different way. She's in the first timeline. How do the memories of another timeline just settle into place? 'Cause Ray, I can never go back. What about Sherry and the boys? Well, that's different. There's still the bubble that brought me back. Then he paused. That bubble exists, right, Ray? I wouldn't lie to you, Patch. Yes, I believe the bubble still exists. Getting the power to nudge it back is another story. Focus power. Good. Been gone almost a year. What about Lynn, Ray? The man smoking the cigarette talked to an older man in a suit. They both looked down toward the food area. Denali hooked me up with Lynn just before I met you at UCLA. She said she missed me, said Meinkewitz, clearing his throat in the emotion. She knows they want me because of my connection to the Kennedy assassination and because I knew you. When's the last time you saw her? Look, Patch, like Kate, it's just something I accept. I don't like it. I still love her. But my damned house and condo in Florida is still under surveillance. You know that. They reached the open carts. Bagriel looks good and sweet, and Kalia, and eggs. You know, I'm getting hungry, said Meinkewitz, smiling. And they do have orange juice. I knew you were hungry, said Patch as he pointed to the individual portions. The man who owned the cart began speaking perfect English. Patch laughed, and they brought the meals in a box to the tables under a spreading tree. On the hill, both men who had been watching them were gone. Patch listened to Meinkewitz, but panned the street and extended alleys. You know, even though Lynn knew back in '63 I was going to be on the run after Kennedy was killed, it was still awful for her. We had a good relationship, Patch. She's my best friend. Patch turned back. Stop with the was, Ray. We're going to get the hell out of this place and off this continent. You'll see the Rock of Gibraltar before sunset. Well, I sure as hell hope so. Feel like the whole Pentagon will be after us if our Joint Chiefs theory is correct. With Rosselli going down, we need to get to Moynihan in Dallas. Meinkewitz shook his head as Patch paid him more dirhams from the hotel. The man with the cart had given Patch 2 metal skewers, probably for the meat. Patch set the box on the table and then bit into the bagrier. Hey, this isn't half bad. The eggs and meat, too. Tasty. The map has train service to Lisbon, said Patch, now enjoying the eggs. Well, I won't feel right till we step off that plane in Lisbon, and then New York. I know, but mailing that envelope is at the top of the list, said Patch. We'll ask at customs before we head to Lisbon. Patch nodded and continued devouring his breakfast. I keep thinking about Vietnam. I know, that slaughter along the river, Patch. A yellow Mercedes turned out of the second alley. How many hundreds of slaughters have been on both sides? We need to get out of here. We still have time. No, we don't, said Patch, grabbing the box, and pulled Meinkewitz to his feet and took both skewers. Meinkewitz had the envelope. Our friends are back. Where? The yellow Mercedes. Walk slowly behind these trees. How could they trace us? Doesn't matter. They did. Patch spotted a small boat with blue and white sails rocking with the tide. On this boat. He crawled onto the bow and Patch turned over. The Mercedes rolled slowly along the boulevard. The man in purple, a cigarette in his mouth, hung out the back window, and another man surveyed the area from the passenger side. Patch was tired of the stress, tired of being on the run, and tired of missing his family. The Mercedes passed, but Patch and Meinkewitz stayed down. Why did they come to the ferry? They could have gone to a dozen other places. Ray, this is just one car with 3 guys. I'm sure whoever it is has everything covered. I wish we were armed. Finch and his boss, Poirier, have contacts all over Europe and beyond. I know. They waited for the longest time. The steamer's whistle blasted and it was 6 a.m. They scurried out of the tiny boat and started along the seawall to the steamer. It was at that time the Mercedes crashed through the food carts and raced at high speed along the trees. Patch pulled Meinkewitz to the other side of the trees and sent him toward the steamer. He grabbed a rock off the sand and quickly pounded the skewers into the ground. In a move that would impress the gymnast, Patch rolled behind the trees and popped up running. Meinkewitz held the envelope on the wood car ramp behind the ferry. The steamer nudged slightly forward in the surf to the right. Bullets sprayed like dirt in the rain in a tornadic storm as Patch scrambled toward the wall. The sound of punctured tires sounded like gunfire, and the Mercedes tires were flattened by the skewers. As Patch dived with his arms extended, the driver lost control. Patch clawed up the wood ramp of the ferry and the Mercedes became airborne, flipped in midair and splashed into the ocean. Are you all right, Patch? Patch stood and wiped his soaked pants. But I think I'm in better shape than that Mercedes. My copy of the index is ruined. You have the other copy. Well, I'm not planning to jump in the water. How's your wallet? Dry. God forbid you have a soggy Jim Morrison autograph. Patch grinned and guided Meinkewitz inside. They moved along the cars under the main ferry as several men from the boat descended the upper stairs. Patch smiled as both he and Meinkewitz showed their tickets and passports. They were directed inside as the boat pulled away from the dock. Patch never flinched. 15 minutes later, the steamer was a distance from Tangier. The police arrived with their flashing lights in the marketplace, and a crowd gathered along the seawall. During the departure, Patch had seen no one in the water. That was quite the stunt, Patch. I just hope they don't connect you to the Mercedes. Don't you know, Ray? Know what? I'm the luckiest man on the planet. Oh, you better hope your luck holds out. Ferry steamer to Gibraltar, December 17, 1967. Mid-afternoon on the blue ocean, a stiff breeze ruffled the newspaper article. A column from a British newspaper highlighted Bobby Kennedy's appearance on Face the Nation back in the United States. Patch became increasingly convinced that Vietnam would drive Bobby toward the presidency. East Essex Telegram, Kennedy Watchers, Washington, D.C. Speculating about a Kennedy running for office has been an interesting parlor game ever since the young John F. Kennedy ran for a congressional seat in 1946. In late 1967 into 1968, the presidential election cycle has begun in earnest, with many speculating on the prospects of the junior senator from New York. Senator Robert F. Kennedy addressed the speculation as well as the issues of the day on CBS News' Face the Nation. Correspondent Martin Agronsky asked Senator Kennedy if he would accept the Democratic vice presidential nomination. Kennedy gave an unabashed, "No, I would not." Agronsky asked why Kennedy wouldn't just run himself if he wanted new policies. Kennedy maintained that his speaking out, especially with the war, becomes personal. The senator said that no one ever analyzed him on the basis of his criticism. It would become immediately a personality struggle. Questioned by Tom Wicker if President Johnson would be the best man to be president, Mr. Kennedy said he would support Mr. Johnson should he be the Democrat nominee. He added, "One of the problems in the country is that there is not communication. There is no real dialogue about Vietnam. We have taken to the streets with violence and lawlessness." End quote. Senator Kennedy reiterated to CBS's Roger Mudd that he would not be a candidate for president, but he would fully participate in the national debate. Robert Kennedy has a new book, To Seek a Newer World, titled based on Tennyson's poem, that will add to the discussion. Quote, "I think what we're doing in Vietnam is a mistake," he said. He went on to say that he thinks it's possible we can have peace in Vietnam. The senator said the issue of Vietnam will be the great issue next year and be on people's minds, and South Vietnam should carry more burden of the war. "When will I see that rock?" "What am I, the ferry's captain, Ray?" asked Patch, laughing. "Under our circumstances, you have no right to be in a good mood, Patch." "Excuse me, Ray, but neither one of us should be alive." Patch held up the newspaper. "Ray, this article convinces me how adamant Bobby is. He wants to end this war, period." "Well, being a senator is not the answer. To fully stop this war, you have to be president." "Is it, Ray? Jack Kennedy couldn't stop these bastards." "Then what's the answer?" "They must be destroyed, scattered to the wind, the way Kennedy said, all of them." "Well, on the positive side," said Meinkewitz, "back inside I found a map and the address of the Royal Gibraltar Post Office. I suggest we dump this envelope as soon as we get there." "Well, where is it?" asked Patch. "Main Street, Gibraltar." "That's it? That simple? Main Street? Founded in 1886. Then he looked up at Patch. "You haven't said how we're going to get to Lisbon." "Because I damn well don't know. Sure, we pass through customs, but there could be agents all over the place looking for us, U.S. intel." "I say we rent a car. We have the phony names." "I hope you're right. First, we send that report to Mendacia." Royal Gibraltar Post Office, Main Street, Gibraltar. Constricted sidewalk forced Patch to march up the road and Meinkewitz to navigate on the sidewalk. They moved under an arched opening within the facade. A man in shorts held open the wood door and Patch followed Meinkewitz inside. Several people stood in line at the counter of the aged building. Patch panned the front windows. "How long can we park that rental out there?" asked Meinkewitz in a low voice. "We have plenty of time, Ray. Half an hour, then we head for Lisbon." Meinkewitz nodded as the line moved up. He nervously slid his hands up and down the envelope. As he stepped up, he set the envelope on the counter. Baker Finch mounted the mail stack. With a perpetual smirk, Finch sauntered forward with a small handgun pointed at them. Other men, probably agents, walked through the front door, locked it, and took up positions up front. "So, we finally meet the great Patch Kincaid. Do you have any idea how long we've been looking for you clowns? Crossman almost had you in Louisiana, and now I have you. And I have your French report index. The bonus. Glad we didn't disappoint you, Baker. Can I call you Baker?" "The longest time we thought you were in Cuba, Kincaid, or dead. Tell me where Sir Alex is hiding. Who? Meinkewitz backed up with the report. Hold it, Dr. Meinkewitz. There's nowhere for you to go. Hand over the pages or... Or what? Asked Patch, stepping forward. You're not going to kill us. You need to debrief us. Find out what we've been doing, you scumbag. Finch had to process the scumbag remark, but again smirked. Henry, Mark, get their guns and the index. Two men converged from the door toward Meinkewitz. Patch caught the cylindrical metal wastebasket with his boot and catapulted the barrel across the floor, tripping the two men. Finch, armed with the handgun, crawled on the counter, but Meinkewitz hit him hard enough with the table pen weight to knock the gun loose. You son of a bitch! Yelled Finch, shaking his injured hand. Patch then, in a single motion, lifted the flag stand and hurled it through the front window. Meinkewitz held the envelope like a fullback as Patch grabbed him under the other arm, and they both leaped through the opening in the glass. Patch heard Finch swearing as he and Meinkewitz ran up the road. They darted right and out of sight. How did he know? Shouted Meinkewitz as they jogged up the road. He's good, Ray, and he doesn't give up. If we're lucky, we'll get the hell out of here alive. Patch opened the Peugeot and they climbed inside. Checking the map, he spun the car around and headed north toward the highway. Less than a minute later, a long, dark Mercedes convertible with Finch at the wheel screeched around the corner at the traffic light. It's him! Shouted Meinkewitz. He gripped the envelope tighter and crunched the edge. Patch accelerated and steered directly at the Mercedes. Don't play chicken with him, Patch. He's as crazy as you are. Patch held his arms out straight to the wheel as the Peugeot roared up the street. He was not sure whether Finch would veer off, but he did know that Finch and CIA had more to lose from a head-on crash than he and Meinkewitz. The Mercedes raced closer, and in a split second, Finch slid the vehicle to the left. The Mercedes bounced off the parked cars. Patch heard the scraping as Finch and one of the guys from the front of the post office spun in a circle. The man in the passenger seat fired his handgun, missing the Peugeot. Patch maintained a high speed as the city road curved to the highway. That was one hell of a gamble, Patch. In the mirror, Finch himself fired, but the Peugeot was shielded by a row of trees along the curb. Patch then slowed and maneuvered left on a road between the trees. Patch, what the hell are you doing? Asked Meinkewitz, his voice shaking on the half-paved road. We need to get out of here. No, Ray, that Mercedes will catch us before we've even reached the border. And if not, Finch has enough clout to have us stop no matter where we go. Patch maintained the speed limit as they moved back through town. Then he'll figure out that you've anticipated his moves. Not if I do something totally stupid. What? Oh, I can hardly wait for this one, said Meinkewitz as he pinched the bridge of his nose and Patch shifted the car over the bumpy road. He braked and spun the Peugeot in a lower gear onto a one-way street that dipped downhill. His head hit the roof as Meinkewitz gripped the dash. The engine whined, reached a high pitch as they leveled out in a residential area with Gibraltar's limestone escarpment rising like a bad moon in the distance. At extraordinary reckless speed, Patch raced like a Le Mans driver along the smooth blue ocean. Meinkewitz reported no sign of Finch. Cars pulled off the road and people scattered as they flew under the Gibraltar expanse and then hooked back so they faced the rock itself. Patch downshifted and passed a small mosque tower. Meinkewitz was thrown against the door but kept yelling that Patch was on two wheels as they circled a roundabout and catapulted toward the limestone base. In a few seconds, the Peugeot angled upward beyond the stone wall barrier. The ocean was dotted with huge cargo ships and smaller vessels that Patch contemplated stowing aboard. The incline became gradual, overshadowed by the rock structure. An occasional seagull glided over the green fauna spread across the sloping landscape below. When the road turned, he followed the slope upward toward the rock. When they had reached a considerable height, the road banked left and into a tunnel. The Peugeot emerged seconds later in the sunlight with still more rock ahead. The limestone had more detailed strata that loomed over the road and the ocean hundreds of feet away. Once they started up the rock itself, the road narrowed with no guardrails. The elevation increased rapidly, and Patch negotiated the turns carefully. Little palm trees appeared sporadically on the lofty side. The road doubled back with the downward slope on the left and the upper rock on the right. You better hope Baker Finch doesn't figure this out. No, because it's pretty dumb, fleeing from a CIA agent to a point on the top of a massive rock with no exit. Oh, no argument here. If we get this index back to the States, it will be a major miracle. Nearer to the top, they passed a rock cave. Then an area of yellow grass padded the edge of the constricted road and scrub-brush trees. Patch parked the Peugeot in a small lot, and he and Meinkewitz hiked up the carved-out trail to the observation platform. There were encased phones near the observing area. The curved harbor and hundreds of linear docks capped the blue-green water like a symmetrical painting. Patch swung the binoculars along the road they had taken from the post office. The traffic chugged along, but there were several trucks in front of the broken window. The Mercedes was not on the street or anywhere on the side streets. He's not there, so where did he go? Maybe north to the border. Patch followed the road to the highway. As he inched along, he didn't see the Mercedes or any vehicle chasing them. Nope. And where the hell is this SOB? Patch handed the binoculars to Meinkewitz. He crossed his arms and stared across the ocean haze to the purple landmass in Moroccan territory. He ran his hand over his sweaty face. I can't understand how Finch figured out we were taking that ferry. Somebody else was watching us. It's just a matter of time before they're all swarming over this place. Maybe, but Finch got over here, said Meinkewitz, the binoculars pressed over his eyes. And here's your operative phrase, Patch. This man is a chess player. He figured it out. Something darted from behind. A weird species of monkey raced toward the box and began clawing the envelope. Hey, get the hell out of here, cried Meinkewitz, kicking at the monkey. The monkey whacked Meynkewitz's leg until Patch lifted the animal up and threw him back to the open area. Unbelievable! He thought it was food, said the Brit with an odd little hat behind Patch. Patch saw dozens of other monkeys around the area. They clawed and dipped into backpacks. Then he looked up at the old man. What are those monkeys doing up here? Monos, they came from Morocco before anyone came here. You can feed those creatures, but you're supposed to be fined. One of the monkeys moved on all fours, and Meinkewitz erupted, pointing at the monkeys. Don't even think about it. Barbary macaques, to be exact. So they want food? Asked Patch. Not really. Food is here, so they get it. They're crazy, said Patch, moving past a large woman with a huge thermos jug. They'll eat because it's there, said the Brit. I should put up warning signs, mumbled Meinkewitz as he scanned the city, the envelope firmly pressed in his hand. Patch moved up to Meinkewitz. You've surveyed the area, Ray. How do we get out of here? Private boat? Patch looked north toward Spain and nodded. If we do that, then we don't get to Lisbon. The real issue is how we get to the United States. And if we do get home, where do we land now that we've been outed by CIA? Meinkewitz shrugged his shoulders. Who the hell knows? There's water, the airport, cars, train station, what else? Truck? They won't stop every truck, Patch. And all those tankers and shipping vessels, they're headed somewhere. Patch smiled as one of the macaques scoffed up a woman's lunch bag. What about the report, Patch? They'll be checking mail coming out of Gibraltar now. We have to hold on to it till it's safe to mail it. When will it ever be safe? If these guys think they've made the big score locating us, it's huge. Patch furrowed his brow as he thought. They had been so well conditioned not to use the phone to the Milky Way network, but now maybe they needed to. What is it, Patch? We need to call somebody who can help us. We have more enemies than Gibraltar has macaques. Patch turned to him. That was very good, Ray. Now be as frigging hilarious and tell me who we should call on one of those phones around the observation platforms. Well, it can't be Mendoza or anyone else who's been under surveillance. Wait, Colonel Kahawi at Ramsey, the Air Force Base, said Patch. Kahawi? Asked Meinkewitz. Exactly. That's why we leave a message. If it works, we'll be brought back to the United States. I used the plover cover I used to land at Ramsey, and if the Pentagon is monitoring this, you don't know the answer to that, Ray. What did Bob Dylan say? Since when do you listen to Bob Dylan? I think Morrison is corrupting you. I heard it at UCLA. When you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. Couldn't have said it better myself. And just how long are we going to stay up here, Captain Kincaid? Not the question, Ray. Just hold on to that envelope. We need to get to a phone and call Ramsey. Risky, but we have no choice. 5 minutes later, he reached a British operator as he looked down over the harbor docks. After some initial confusion, probably because of Patch's accent, she attempted several times to connect to Ramsey Air Force Base outside Riverside, California. On a weak, scratchy signal, a military man listened to the operator and asked Colonel Kawaii to accept the charges for a call from Plover.
Stand by.
Now I get it, said Meinkewitz, listening in. He'll be forced to answer. You have to get lucky, Patch.
Colonel Kawaii is unavailable.
This is Plover. I need to leave a message.
Yes, sir.
The message is, need your help. I'm with Polaris. Location, Gibraltar, UK, atop the rock. Have classified JFK information. Pursued by Baker Finch, CIA. Will remain in observation area and...
This is Kawaii. Message received and understood.
The call ended with a series of clunky rumbles. Patch set down the phone and faced Meinkewitz. He understands. That move will go down as brilliant or Custer's last stand. Patch randomly checked the town with binoculars. The sun lay low over the Atlantic. I could use a good meal. The macaques had settled down along the fence rail to the trail. I can't eat under duress. I know you can. Well, it is dinner time, said Patch, pointing to a family eating near the stone wall across the observation area. The large woman, now next to the group, poured soup out of the thermos into a stainless steel bowl that was commensurate with her own voluminous size. She won't share the porridge. No, I guess not, he said, looking back to the city with the binoculars. Just what the hell do you think Kawaii did? Asked Meinkewitz. I pray to God he either called Phinney or Denali himself. If that's the case, we have to believe they know what to do. Maybe they'll have somebody make Finch back off. The sun is setting. I know, said Patch as he stood. He brushed the dirt off his pants. Jesus God, said Meinkewitz, his face ashen. What's wrong with that? Asked Patch as he turned. Baker Finch, minus his suit coat and his sleeves rolled up, marched in front of his men from the post office. Damn. Nice try, Patch, said Finch from the observation area. It's all over now, Captain. You have my congratulations. Most people wouldn't have figured this out. Genius. The remark bounced harmlessly off Finch. Tell us about Bellini. Who is he? I'm sure you're worth every cent CIA is paying you, Finch. I'll accept the compliment. I actually respect you, Patch. Sometimes it's good to know when you're defeated. Patch slowly stepped to his right, almost stepping on one of the macaques. Finch, his gun aimed at Patch, waved his bald security guy forward. And you, Dr. Meinkewitz, we need the report index. You people killed Kennedy. I honestly have no idea who did what. My orders are to find you two and to bring you to a safe location. For what, torture? Huff, get the index envelope from Dr. Meinkewitz. You'll get nothing, yelled Meinkewitz. The big lady sensed what was happening. Patch pointed behind his back toward the soup bowl. Meinkewitz continued his rant as Finch, annoyed, tightened his brow. As Huff started toward Meinkewitz, the lady nodded and slipped the soup bowl, broth swishing around, into Patch's right hand. You people are bastards. Give him the goddamn envelope or I'll blow your head off, roared Finch as he waved the gun. Meinkewitz pressed his lips and prepared to hand over the envelope. Patch's superb timing, with Finch diverted, sent the hot soup in a warping sheet of dark broth that covered Finch and the other men behind him. Huff took aim at Patch as a steam of hungry macaques humped their way on all fours toward the soup-covered men. More macaques appeared up the trail. They swarmed over Finch and two men, biting and scratching. Patch and Meinkewitz leaped down the trail toward the parking lot and past more advancing macaques. He thought Finch might shoot anyways as they rumbled over a small knoll. Going back to the Peugeot would certainly get them trapped with the local police or with Finch if he recovered. But Patch figured they had no choice. He looked over his shoulder and then at Meinkewitz. Finch and the others were still engaged with the macaques and couldn't extricate themselves from the attack. Patch elbowed Meinkewitz. Bon appetit. He opened the Peugeot's door and slipped into the driver's seat. When he inserted the key, the engine wouldn't turn over. He looked at Meinkewitz holding the envelope. He sabotaged it. Both men burst out of the car and started down the road. On the backside of the rock, shadows already created the illusion of night falling even though the sun had not yet set. The city and the ocean were bright in the last vestige of daylight. As the shooting began above, they started down the road on the far side of the Gibraltar rock. "Is he shooting at those macaques?" "Sounds that way," said Patch. Patch feared navigating down the darkening road with no side barriers. "The guy thinks of everything," said Patch, looking over the edge to the ocean several hundred feet below. "It'll take us hours to get to the ground." Up ahead in the dim light was a sign for the rock alcove, the great siege tunnels. "That cave," said Meinkewitz. Patch slowed and thought. "If they're firing guns, then Finch or his people are hurt." Meinkewitz nodded. "Those caves are a place to hide, Ray, for now anyway." With a padlock wrapped around an iron doorframe, Patch returned with a heavy rock. He immediately began pounding until the chrome lock loosened. Then he whacked it apart, pushing the iron rail door. He turned on the corridor lights, extending hundreds of feet into the rocks. They passed dozens of displays about how in 1779 and ending in 1783, General Elliot, using Major Henry Youth's idea, ordered the Royal Engineers to begin boring a tunnel. Ventilation holes were also bored and the artillery brought in. Patch turned off the forward light but kept the lights in the illuminated area near the end of the tunnel. Meinkewitz slid down the wall and sat on the floor. "We can only stay in here for so long, Patch." "I get it, Ray. I'm going down this tunnel and see where it connects." "Be my guest. Don't go away." "Right." Although he couldn't find the light panels or switches, a dim source in the sea breeze indicated an opening. Several cannon for the display that were once pointed at the Spanish were positioned in front of the iron bars of an opening that looked down upon the city lights. Getting around or through those bars would be impossible. It made him think of Rosselli and how he'd be in jail soon. He would have called Rosselli had the notorious mafioso behaved himself. Patch felt his way along the limestone walls back to Meinkewitz and the light source in the tunnel. With his eyes closed, Meinkewitz held the envelope in his lap. Patch did not wake his friend and sat across from him within the stone enclosure. Being in these tunnels would only delay capture by the police. He thought about hiding the envelope, but that wouldn't help the investigation. Very slowly, he alternated between consciousness and sleep. He dreamed that he held Sherry's hand as they jaunted behind the boys up at Apex Junction on a beautiful, clear day. But then it broke into 1,000 pieces. Everything was gone. "Damn," muttered Patch as morning sunlight streamed across the Mediterranean into the cave. Still shaken by the loss of Sherry and the boys in the dream, he looked at a groggy Meinkewitz. "Well, here we are, Ray." "Yeah, here we are, halfway to nowhere. I just had a horrendous dream. Horrendous because it's all true." "Dallas?" "No, Sherry and the boys. Then my world fell apart like smashing glass." "Not good." Patch sat next to his old friend. "I know what you're not telling me about Apex Junction, Ray. Look, Patch, we're not sure about anything. You simply don't have the knowledge to activate individual bubbles." Meinkewitz pressed his lips. He fiddled with the envelope. "I think you know that answer, Patch. If Moon weren't insane, I might have gotten something from him." Patch walked down the tunnel. At this time of day, the ocean was bright blue and the city of Gibraltar. Cars were already moving on the roads. He focused on Morocco to his left. He was determined to get the information to New Orleans and more determined to help find Kennedy's true killers. But what would he do with the rest of his life if he were trapped within this real timeline? Meinkewitz was on his feet with his back to Patch when Patch neared the opening to the road. "I can't believe they didn't search these caves." "Listen up, Patch. We need to get off this rock, and we probably can do it because of the confusion up top last night." "Ray, what was your last conclusion before Moon stole the briefcase?" Meinkewitz turned. That an intense focus energy on a specific bubble would give it momentum and it would be attracted to points where the retrograde stopped and started. "Okay, but so great an energy to a small area seems damned impossible to me." A vehicle's brakes squeaked outside. Patch looked to his left. "Somebody is about to confront us." I've been interrogated by CIA. It's not pleasant. At least a half a dozen armed men with military uniforms appeared in the street. A tall man with jack boots and a large handgun kicked open the iron bar door. His accent was British, and so was his demeanor. "I'm Bernard Morrison." "No need to shoot, Major," said Patch as Meinkewitz stood. "We offer no resistance." "Well, I sure as hell hope not." "We were attacked," said Meinkewitz. "We know all about it, and you. We have our orders." "From Bellini?" asked Patch. "Don't know any Bellini. What's in the envelope, Dr. Meinkewitz?" "Intelligence services are thorough, aren't they?" asked Patch. "You're civil for an arresting officer, Major." "We aren't here to arrest you, Captain. We're here to rescue, as per orders from Olaf Johansson at NATO." "You're flying out of here." Patch looked at Meinkewitz and then at Morrissey. "I have a classified report in this envelope. Do I have to surrender it?" "You can carry it with you to Generalissimo Francisco Franco for all I care. I'm sure you're hungry. Let's get down to the airport." No argument here." "What happened up top?" asked Patch as they headed past the detail onto the sunlit road. He motioned them to a green military truck parked 50 feet up the road. "Some poor chap was attacked by those confounded Barbary monkeys. I'd shoot the whole damn bunch of them if I got the order." "Did he survive?" asked Meinkewitz. "They're all American, no offense." "None taken," said Patch. "Two are in the hospital. A third for observation was the report I got. Doctors were afraid of infection. They were quite mauled by those animals. Please enter the vehicle from the rear. You'll be flying from Gibraltar within the hour." "Major, thank you," said Patch, saluting. "My pleasure, gentlemen," he said, returning the salute, and looked up the road. "Let's return to level ground before the monkeys exact revenge." Chapter 13, Newengets, the Netherlands, December 20th, 1967. Patch did not sleep after what happened 3 days ago at the British military base. He personally insisted on making copies of the de Gaulle index on the Xerox 914. He had just begun scanning the index pages and walked across the office to get a coffee from one of Morrissey's men. Meinkewitz had briefly used the men's room. Incredibly, the machine overheated and caught fire. Two of the soldiers used something called a scorch eliminator provided by Xerox, but the damage to the report was complete. Patch singed his fingers in the process and went into a furious rage as Meinkewitz re-entered the office. Meinkewitz was certain the incident was a paradox. Some of the information on those index pages was significant enough to change the timeline. Patch was still unnerved by the time they landed in the Netherlands and called the incident damn stupid. Meinkewitz lit the cigar and put his hand on Patch's shoulder. Patch stopped the microfilm at the next list of people named Bellini. How could a company like Xerox have a machine on the market that requires a fire extinguisher ray? Morrissey said that machine never overheated. And we risked our lives for nothing? Which makes it all the more important we find Bellini in the actual report, Patch. Patch inhaled. He knew Meinkewitz was right, but he couldn't stabilize his anger. 4 Bellinis were in the British government today. He looked up at Menkiewicz's tightened face. "Ray, we have 18 Bellinis in the U.S. government, the Austrian government, now 3 more in the British government. We're assuming this information about a Bellini is in government. Bellini could be anyone. What does he really have to do with the report and Gerard?" He flipped off the viewer and stood. The whore whispered the name only when she knew that people were following her. "That adds more to the credibility," said Meinkewitz. Patch scooped up his coat and both men entered the cold sea air. "And what about Baker Finch and his band of brothers?" "Well, someone is hushing up the injuries. I'm sick of being on the run. Look, we'll be leaving for the gala at Northrop Castle," said Meinkewitz. "I guess it's a big deal. Festive Christmas atmosphere. Denali wants us to find the report that goes with the index. We'll get our marching orders at Northrop from Colonel Niedermeyer. The last remaining report that Gerard stole. Yeah. We should get some idea how we can get back home. Colonel Niedermeyer will have connections to get us to the USA. Finding that report will tell us everything we want to know about what happened in Dallas and why. Ray, where the hell are the people who assembled this report for de Gaulle? Meinkewitz turned from the harbor. Patch, if you research that report, you're going to broadcast your name for all the intel agencies to round you up. Or worse. I suppose you're right. They reached the worn wooden docks and Patch buttoned up his heavy navy coat. All the local boats were painted to a heightened pastel hue, and the gulls put up a continuing chatter. The Bellini factor. None of the 6 people I called yesterday had the remotest idea of any report or Gerard or let alone Bellini. There has to be another way to track Gerard, said Meinkewitz. He's much too clever. Patch stroked his chin. You know what the key is to this, Ray? What? Where did Madame Dubrow get the index information? I don't have that answer. Her little group is dead, and I wouldn't advise stirring up trouble if she has any Confederates back in Algeria. Is that report even real? You know how this intelligence disinformation works. Yeah, I know it very well. Patch put his hands in his pockets as the biting wind ripped across the water. That report could be bait to reel us in. And why did they kill Dubrow and the others? I'm going to assume that report is real, said Patch, and they continued down the dock. Any background report on Niedermeyer? Who is he? Johansson says he's part of the network, verified by Phinney less than 24 hours ago, said Meinkewitz. I just don't trust anybody. Patch stopped along the dock. You think our trip to England could be some kind of setup, Ray? I wish I didn't think that way, said Meinkewitz. Damn these people. Patch, relax, said Meinkewitz, putting his hand on Patch's shoulder. If it makes you feel any better, I have a plan. What plan? If we get separated. Oh, I can't wait to hear this one, laughed Patch. Listen up, Patch. I plan to head for Independence Hall. Patch fully laughed. Independence Hall? Independence Hall is across the Atlantic, Ray. Why don't you just make it the North Pole? Ho, ho, ho. Patch panned the small bay. What are you going to do, Ray? Camp out at the Liberty Bell? Well, what's your idea, then? R.D. Moynihan in Texas. Meinkewitz made a crushed tomato face. Ah, Rosselli's friend. I knew him very well. Nobody to mess with. Didn't you knock out Moynihan, Patch? Asked Meinkewitz. Rosselli says he respects me because of that. Let's make it Independence Hall. It's a lot safer. My concern is who might be at this gala, said Patch. We could be walking into a nightmare. Johansson, a man who seemed to enjoy waddling, emerged from his office in Greutzen. In his hand was a generalized typewritten report about Colonel Ronald Niedermeyer. He handed the one-page summary to Patch. This was an issue by Denali 18 months ago, Patch. Niedermeyer, Ronald John, born June 19, 1936, Indianapolis, Indiana. U.S. Army colonel who served in Vietnam as a liaison to the Central Intelligence Agency. Oh boy. After graduating from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, New York in 1958, he was commissioned into the infantry as a second lieutenant and as an advisor in Japan. Niedermeyer was an assistant chief of staff of operations and subsequent chief of staff and liaison 1961 to 62 for the ARVN forces in Saigon. 1963 to 67, NATO liaison to Grand Dame Corporation, Copenhagen. Wife, Victoria Hopkins Niedermeyer. Children, Darcy, Manfred, and Cassidy, Arlington, Virginia. He's early training it, one would think, said Johansson. Patch had more questions. What's Grand Dame Corporation? Johansson pressed his lips. A computer manufacturing company? Patch nodded. His eyes caught Meinkewitz, who seemed to be possessing the Grand Dame information. What about 1963? Where was Niedermeyer? Don't you find that admission odd? Menkiewicz's face lit up and he raised his index finger. I know exactly where he was. The Pentagon. Where was he on November 22nd? I believe he was in Canada. Why? Asked Patch. Patch, who cares? Patch faced Johansson. When do we leave for Britain? You'll arrive at Northwood Castle on Christmas Eve or you'll meet contact. What contact? Asked Patch. If you'll pardon my being suspicious. I don't know. Denali approved him. Now, this contact will assist you with Colonel Niedermeyer to have a meeting about the report. I believe the report is still missing, sir. Only because Gerard stole it, said Johansson. Somebody must know the contents of that report, like Bellini. Sure, CIA. Gerard knows they will pay him what he wants. In the first week of December, Patch and Meinkewitz were briefed by Johansson in one of the supplemental houses on a Danish farm somewhere in the lowlands of Holland. Patch received additional information. Niedermeyer was secretly a member of the Milky Way network and had been on duty at the Pentagon on November 22, 1963. He confirmed through close members of the military what happened to Kennedy's body at the 2 autopsies conducted at Bethesda Naval Hospital. His knowledge made him obsessed with finding the truth on who killed John F. Kennedy. Maybe Bellini was the key to finding the de Gaulle report. During this time, Patch checked the name Bellini all over Europe, Britain, and Ireland. Over 3,000 men had the name Bellini, and the name was sent back home to the United States. Denali's blue box was temporarily connected via the transatlantic cable to a telephone in the farmhouse. Although he discounted the Bellini information, Denali and Phinney had been analyzing Westbrook's interrogation in Vietnam, General Comstock's demise, and André's role in Paris. Plans were made to work closely with André's people. More was learned about Madame Dubrow and how she worked closely with the Office of Strategic Services in Europe during the Second World War. That connection is how she befriended Dulles in Switzerland and was later able to piece together dribs and drabs of his involvement in Kennedy's death, including his tactical position at an alternate CIA control center called the Farm before and after the events of Dallas. Johansson thought it was ironic that CIA may have contributed to her death outside of Algiers. Patch listened to Denali, but focused on Meinkewitz reading the bound report as he removed it from an envelope. His friend closed his eyes and shook his head. Then he thumbed back through the report. About a minute later, Denali's secure call ended. Johansson left for the main house and Patch crossed the room. "Ray, what's going on?" Meinkewitz, his eyes tired and red, looked up. Just paperwork." "For what?" Meinkewitz looked down. "Patch, I need to go over this." "Let's have it, Ray. What is it?" Meinkewitz paused for a few seconds. "Denali's contacts intercepted a cable with my name embedded as a reference to my time dilation work. Moon is claiming that my work with dimensional bubble movement was correct. In the cable, Dr. Moreau, wherever he is, agrees with my basic concepts, but he was adamant that physically moving bubbles without a 5 million megawatt focused and predetermined mathematical passageway, which would correspond to our own concept of time, is impossible." Patch cringed and grabbed the report. "What are you saying, Ray?" Meinkewitz looked up with glazed eyes. "You know what I'm saying. We simply don't have the technology or power to do what's required to successfully bring you back." "Well, what if the bubble returns?" "You know as well as I do that bubbles follow identical paths. I wouldn't be back here if that weren't the case." "Not without energy, they don't." "You know what this means. Damn it! I think Denali sent this because he wanted you to have the truth, Patch. Look at the last paragraph. Moon wants my opinion. Denali emphatically told me to stay away from Moon because Moon is erratic, extremely dangerous, and connected to the Soviets." "Screw this. Screw everything," said Patch, stepping toward the door. "Where are you going, Patch?" "Oh, out. I don't care, Ray." The moonlight ripples across the bay were intercepted by the bobbing boat skiffs. In the bright moonlight, Patch's shadow crossed the dockboards like a creature making an appearance from parts unknown. He hadn't eaten breakfast, and fatigue had set in. It was as if everyone had died. Knowing that they were alive in another timeline was almost too difficult to comprehend. A flashlight shined in his face. "All right, Patch, let's get you some chow." "I don't care. I just don't care about anything, Ray. Why should I?" "I'm not asking you to, Patch. I want you to get something to eat." "I feel like I could just reach out into the universe, and Shari would pull me through. That's not going to happen, is it?" He began walking back with Meinkewitz. "You okay, Patch?" "Yeah. You'll figure it out, Ray." First of all, I have no intention of linking up with Alexander Moon. Moon has proven time and again how unstable he is. Look what happened in France. One thing I can tell you, Patch, this being trapped back here is something you're going to have to live with. I understand. That doesn't mean I have to like it.